We made it. Season 4 of the Be Real podcast.
Is this season 4?
It is, and we are well on our way in season 4. Welcome, everybody.
Yes,
We're switching things up. I'm in a new seat, old mic, new seat. And
we have to give him his mic back. We won't talk about the details behind this right now.
I don't ask for much. Just the mic. That's really it. But welcome to the Be Real podcast, everyone. My name is Will B, and
you gotta give an intro, bro.
Am I?
This is the first time I've ever thrown it to you like this, right?
I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared.
On the fly, bro.
And here we are, extemporaneous.
Ooh,
well, here's what I will say.
Can we get a lower third for that word? Like, hold on, yeah, right.
Multiple syllables. But I will say this, part of being a part of this wonderful show and this wonderful platform is, one, the opportunity to do an amazing show on the regular basis with my friend, my brother, Mr. Micah Stokes, as he says, Mr. Micah Stokes,
the host
doing the most.
Yes.
And so we're here. We're live. We're active. And we have amazing company. We're in the presence of an absolutely dynamic, intelligent, educated, wise. You use sage for me sometimes. I would say she has sage-like qualities as well.
The sage compliment onto another.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we are going to, take the opportunity to sit at the feet of the one and only Dr. Shy Williams.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you. Indeed. Now, of course, folks who are following, who are consistent and committed to the show.
Yeah. Talk to them.
And I'm sure, they know about Dre Williams, who has also been on the show several times.
Still Dre.
At this point.
Still
Exactly.
DRE.
Several times. And we did an episode with all four of us. Mm-hmm. And so this time we said, Shy, this is your first time actually being, or last time was your first time being on the show. Mm-hmm. We talked to Dre one-on-one one time.
We did that.
I felt it was appropriate.
Yeah.
If we could take the opportunity to speak to you one-on-one. So thank you. Thank you for coming in. How you doing? How you feeling? How you living?
Listen, I'm always great when I'm with great people. So.
Oh.
She's good. I like it. She says less compliment stuff, but it's like whatever she said, it's like
it punches.
Felt it.
It's impactful. Just points it.
So we need to learn. I'm taking notes.
Exactly. Well, I was hoping you could take an opportunity to tell us and the audience a little bit about yourself. You have amassed many credentials in your day.
It took me a long time.
Amen.
And you got a couple letters before your name.
Yes.
And so clearly you've taken the path to work really hard, learn many things, get your certifications, your degrees, and all of that stuff. Tell us a little bit about, who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, the first thing I always tell people, I'm like, look, I'm just a chick from Jersey, fundamentally, right, at the core. But I did go to school and learn some other things, okay?
Fair enough.
So I did get my master's and doctorate in clinical psychology.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my focus was on marriage and family. So that's always been my interest from high school. I knew I wanted to go to school, study psychology, work with couples and families. It's not necessarily what I'm doing all the way, but we're going to come back around. The Lord gave me some detours for a little bit first.
Come on, detours.
So he's bringing me back around to it.
Yes.
But that's always been my interest. Actually, for a little bit, I did marital counseling, did premarital counseling. I actually ran a marriage ministry in a former church for a little bit.
I did not know that.
I didn't know this either.
I did. So I was in.
I
I was in deep with these couples.
Right.
So, yeah, so that's a little bit of my background. Look, I've been some other places, but, worked in some prisons, some hospitals. So I've seen some things, seen and heard some things.
Dang. So when you tell people I've been to prison,
I do, right?
It's different than when I tell them I've been to prison, right?
They let me go home though.
Oh wait, they
let me go home. I went home at 5 o'clock.
They went home every day, but I had to go back.
Right.
Look, I was just as locked in as the rest of them.
Oh,
Lord. Them doors shut.
Oh man,
every day.
Well, that's what's up.
Yes.
So, within your field of expertise concerning relationships, what are some of the tougher situations I think that, well, I'll let you answer it this way. So what are some of the tougher situations that you've come across when dealing with relationships, marriage, family? Like, what's the common problem that seems to pop up the most?
It's shifted a little bit, right? Because 80s baby, right? So we didn't have social media like that. So now there's a lot more opinions. And so I think it's a little more, there's a lot more debate happening between the sexes that probably were a little more quieter behind closed doors, not so vocal, not so loud. So I think it shifted a little bit, right? Like things are becoming more important. Like, what are you bringing to the table? Right, that's the main thing that we're hearing these days. And I'm about this. What are you about? About that bag. So I think the debates have changed slightly. So people aren't even really getting to the point of getting to the relationship now, right? Whereas before people were getting in the relationships and then the problems were coming up. Now you can barely get to the relationship because everybody's arguing about what they're bringing to the table and do you have what I need and want? And it just seems like it's so divided now. But I think that's the main thing right now. People seeming divided and looking at what can you do for me in my life and bring what are we doing? What's the purpose?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating. You mentioned the internet emerging, social media, the convergence of so many different opinions, ideas,
Oh my goodness.
pill colors, and all types
So
of things
much.
happening. It's just a lot. And
Pill colors,
is.
good
yeah,
Lord.
red
The
pill, blue pill,
I was wondering, I was like,
the Matrix apparently,
go.
The man of steel.
and I know
Matthew's impressed, but I'm more impressed that Matthew knows what the Matrix is.
that's a whole nother conversation. He
Sorry,
knows. He
continue.
knows. But I'm curious to know because I also know you, and I know Faith in your clinical work and studies also have a place where they merge.
This is true.
Are you seeing, as you were asking about kind of some of the common challenges, I'm curious to know in the faith church Christian space, are you seeing some of the things from the internet, the world, the culture? Are they also changing the way Christians
I think a
perceive
little bit.
and date and eventually marry?
Yeah, so from the conversations that I've had with people, and even, kind of when you read through some of the threads, there's a lot about, a lot of people I think are looking for a formula, right? Because for a while there was, what was Sierra's prayer? What did she say?
Sierra's prayer.
And people are
That went out the window when Church Girl dropped. They traded that prayer real
Sierra's
quick.
Listen, people are looking for a formula, and instead of, to me, seeking God for what's going to work for their life, they want to know, like, what's your 1, 2, 3 step plan? If
Yeah,
I do
for
that,
sure.
I should get the man or the woman or whatever. And no, you really got to do this kind of individually on your own with God and figure out what's the right path for you.
Right.
You need to be praying. It doesn't have to be a specific prayer or whatever. But I think standards are getting in a lot of people's ways nowadays, even like in the church, outside the church. I've had a lot of conversations with women in the church, and they're looking for the next pastor. It's like, he can have a relationship with God and doesn't have to be the next pastor. You know that, right? Like, he doesn't have to be the next speaker. He can still have his own personal relationship. So some standards and things I think are getting in people's ways. They're getting caught up when it has to look a certain way. And they're not being really flexible and allowing for what God could really bring into their lives.
That's interesting, though, because I feel like now, in this day and age, man, I'm starting to use that terminology. I really am
Right.
getting
Make
old.
you feel, oh, no.
Nowadays. But I think more people are spiritually minded more than ever, in a sense. Whether, I mean, I'm stepping outside the Christian or churchy sort of terminology or truth, if you will. I'm saying on a broader sense, people are more spiritually minded. So one thing that I think, to your point, gets in the way of a lot of people when they're coming or they're looking for a relationship is the mentality that they might not claim this, but I trace it back to the root of the law of attraction. So it's
Which is
like,
definitely common.
so I'll give you a prime example. I've talked to dudes who are smart. They're college athletes. They're, going into biochemistry, engineering, something, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
well put together guys, and also have a strong faith. I asked them, what's one of the hardest things for you in the dating game? And he said, finding a woman who's actually being real, because she thinks that in order to get me, she has to act a certain way in order to kind of attract him. And then, like, the more he gets to know her, he finds out that's not who she really is at all. And so it's like this whole, well, I want this type of guy or I want this type of woman, but I'm not willing to do. I'm just gonna say if I act like it, then I'll attract what I want. You know, and so it's like nobody in my opinion, and I could be harsh here. I don't know, get at me, whatever. But I think people have lost a sense of integrity. I'm just kind of like, who you are matters, and who you are would squash that whole question of like, oh, what are you bringing to the table?
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
And I think it would even squash that mentality of looking at someone else like, what are you bringing to the table? Because I wouldn't talk to anyone who has a character that would make me question, what are you bringing to the table? Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what you guys think, because I would say, as you said, in this day and age, I think sometimes when you're in the dating sphere, you almost look at it like a market. So you have to compete. And so I think people are putting on or posing as something that they know is attractive in the market so that they can get what they think they want. And what their perception is this is the persona or the avatar of what I want. And what I think this person wants is this. So let me bring this to the table.
Yeah.
Because it's only but so many good fill in the blank out here. It's only but so many good men. It's only so many good women. I want this. Only a few that fit this description. So let me put forth what I assume or propose to be attractive to what I'm looking for.
Well, I had a conversation with a friend of mine similarly to this, right? And she was like, well, I have this, I have that. And she's like, the odds aren't really in my favor. I said, to be honest, you just need one.
You only need one.
There are billions of people out here, and then you could break those numbers down to like, how many are men, how many are single, yada, yada, yada. You just need one.
Yeah.
That's it. So those odds are great, actually. We just can't control when it happens.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's the only thing. And you're right. All you have is what you are. And if you trust in God, trust in the process, know what you want, then the person that's for you, when you meet them, then you're going to know because you're going to be on the same page about it. But y'all can try to be something that you're not, and you're going to get something that you don't want in the end, because that you can only put up a front for so long.
Do you believe that people in a relationship, a romantic relationship, are often impeded by personal relationships? Like you'll hear the term platonic relationships, for example. Like that's just my friend. Because nowadays everybody got a guy friend if you're a female, or every guy got a girlfriend who's, oh, that's just my friend.
That's the homie.
Yeah, that's the homie. Yeah. Do you think that
you heard that? She said,
Look, you gotta ask questions of what does that mean?
Right.
What's that look like? What's your history?
Or that's sis, maybe.
Right.
Possibly.
I mean, I see a lot of this stuff like on YouTube skits and whatnot, where it's just like this kind of like hidden joke of like, oh yeah, that's just a friend. But it's like, y'all really. So do you feel like a lot of people, two questions. So do you feel like people are impeded in their search for a relationship by not being willing to cut ties with people who maybe they're too close to and not committed to? And the second question, which I can repeat later, I know how this goes. The second question is, do you think people are mistaken for not looking within their friend pool when they're seeking a relationship? Because if they're just the homie, but yet you seem to have this closeness and you can't let them go for the sake of seeking a relationship, or, if it's a threat to a relationship. I'm getting some faces over here. Okay.
Yeah, we have an audience in the room. They're like,
right. I'm just, so.
That's a good question.
They're like Jordan and what was Taye Diggs' character in The Best Man? There's always that tension.
Yeah.
Sorry, baby. I didn't finish that movie.
No, that's actually a great question, though.
I watched most of it. It's like 60%.
You're about to get your card pulled for that.
Sorry.
He wasn't to the audience. No, he wasn't talking to me. All right.
I'm sorry. I was looking over him.
It was over me. We're close. We're not that close.
Not baby close.
Not baby.
No.
You the homie for real. Not the game.
Let me stay there.
Well, I think the problem can be if you're not shifting the vulnerability and intimacy you have with the homie to the other person, because that gets comfortable. I used to call it, what would I call it? Like, it's like that in case of emergency boyfriend, right? That sometimes people have. It's not your man. Y'all don't have that title, but they function very much like that.
Yeah.
So, if I ain't got nothing to do, I'm bored, I'm lonely, let's just go out and hang out. That's kind of like a date.
It's like a boyfriend or girlfriend of convenience.
Right. Yes. If something's going on, I'm going to call them and vent to them. And you're creating a whole bunch of intimacy without commitment. Ooh. And so then when it comes to being with another partner, you're not giving that part up. Right? So we don't say you have to necessarily let go of the relationship unless it's inappropriate, right? Unless there's boundaries that are crossed that you don't, your partner would agree with. But you cannot be more intimate with someone else and vulnerable and share more than you are in your own relationship. That's never going to work. And that's probably the problem that people are having. And they're not willing to give that up, but they don't want to commit to that. For whatever, usually, from what I hear, the reason is they don't have certain standards that they would fit. Like, we can have that connection, but you don't look the way I want you to look. You don't have the job I want you to have. And you're letting those little things kind of get in the way. So then why are we playing?
So that kind of bleeds into the second question. Are people wrong for looking at that friend and saying, yeah, we might have all this chemistry, we might have this connection, but I would never because of XYZ, like what you said?
I mean, it depends. I mean, you just got to be okay with the fact that you're behind still single. Like, then don't complain. I don't know. Like, sometimes people really do got to check their standards. I'm not saying lower your standards, right? Definitely not saying settle, but really evaluate if that's really what you need, right? If you listen to the last episode, there are things that I didn't think I would ever go for, and I did, but I remember, right? This is before I ever met him, and I was getting like, all right, God, this time is getting long here. I have been single for a minute, and I remember saying, look, you know what, Lord? Whatever you have for me, he could be X, Y, Z. I know in the past I said that's not what I wanted, but God, I'm even willing. And once I was able to be that open and kind of submit what my desires, like be open whatever God had for me, then he definitely brought someone that challenged some of those. Wow. But I was open to it, and it worked out. And it may not. I'm not saying that's going to be everybody's story, right? But I mean, I could just personally say it worked for me.
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious? Do you have something?
Go ahead.
Y'all wheels are turning.
I'll derail the whole thing, but this song is playing in my head like on repeat.
What song is
oh,
this?
Baby, you got what I need.
Biz Markie.
That part.
But you say
he just a friend.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm just sitting here like,
that's a good song association.
That's literally kind of the epitome of like. Yeah. So do you think songs like that being depicted kind of paint? You know what? You had a question.
I think that's on point. And I look at it because, okay, let's get personal for a moment because
let's go.
I feel like I at one place in space in my life, I was that guy. I was the guy that women would call or talk to. They didn't want to. We weren't in a committed thing.
They used
but
to
it was
call
like,
you
oh,
on
he's smart and like you can have a conversation with him, and so da 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 da. But it's like, I wasn't what they were looking to be with or commit to. And then in some ways that wasn't what I was looking for either, but
their loss.
It was,
absolutely.
Thank you. But there was that side, I like that you used the word intimacy, an emotional intimacy that was in place that I think when I started to transition into dating more seriously, like I had to make some decisions for myself and obviously for the relationship, because when I wasn't dating anyone seriously and I was that for her, it wasn't no issue. It wasn't a problem. Of
course not.
But then when I started to try to form ties and emotional connections with, well, not multiple. I was dating one person at a time. I wasn't doing it. But you know what I mean? When it was like, okay, I like you. Like, hey, girl, like, let's da-da-da-da. I did start to recognize, oh, you know what? Because when she has an issue, she still calls me and like, oh, this man, and he get on my nerves and da-da-da-da. Like, oh, let's... And I was like, ooh, you know what? This is starting to be a little more disruptive to kind of what I'm trying to create here. And so it's so interesting you said that, because I don't think I had recognized the way it was influencing my mental, my emotional, for me personally, until I was in a space where I had to make a decision, because I was starting to recognize it was affecting what I had in place. So I think you articulating that kind of made me think. I was like, dang, I guess I was the whatever.
People have
the homie.
In the world, well, before it was the homie, because I feel like that's more of a modern term for things where it's like, oh, that's just the homie. But before that, I feel like it was. I'm gonna go back to the 2000s. Pleasure P called it boyfriend number 2.
Boyfriend number.
You better. I was about to say you better sing, but then I was like, that's not a good song. So let me stop endorsing. I mean, it is what it is. Hey, look, in the 2000s we wasn't rolling with
But that's
Jesus.
interesting. Yeah. Boyfriend number 2. Yeah.
In a sense, you kind of were.
Yeah.
It's like you were emotional support person.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Listen, it's convenient. You on the side. When I don't have nobody right now. That's that's what people do. But so I do think that practice can interfere with people's ability to then commit. Right?
Yeah, because and that was your second question.
Right. You're having, like I said, you're having this intimacy without commitment, and it's fulfilling to an extent where you wouldn't keep doing it. Mm-hmm. Right? And then it can make it really difficult when you decide to commit to give your all to that, because now that looks risky.
Yeah.
And that one's safe. You've been here around.
Yep.
It's cool.
Exactly.
It's comfortable.
It's kind of a low risk type of thing. It's
It
like,
is.
I'm curious to know, on the other side of that coin, I know some people may think of things in extremes or black and white. Mm-hmm. People like that may hear this and go, oh, okay, so when I get in a relationship, I can't have no friends no more. So
no, you can't.
What he said, no, you can't. So like, how do you navigate that? Because I do think once you navigate into a space where, okay, I'm in a committed relationship, and for those who do that, are dating for marriage and get married, you do need to make an adjustment. Mm-hmm. When you're in that space, though, I guess, what is acceptable, or what parameters do you suggest are in place for people who want to remain social and connected with others but don't want to?
Well, boundaries are always important. And so one thing I try not to ever do is impose my beliefs on other people, right? Because different things can work for different relationships. There's multiple ways to have a successful, healthy relationship. It just has to be something the two of you guys agree on, right? And that you're going to follow through. You can't say, well, I can have friends and you can't. No, you guys have to be in agreement about that, right? I can only say for my relationship, for example, though, if we were to text, or because we tend to have mutual friends, right? So if we're texting one of them of the opposite sex, then my husband's on it. So it's not like I'm just texting the other person. Right. It's my husband's involved, so he can see the conversation I'm having, and vice versa. He may want to text one of our woman friends, but he's going to have me on the text, right? So we're clear about that. It's just out in the open, and no one's secretly hitting up nobody behind each other's back. We know each other's friends. If someone comes up and they're like, well, who's that? Okay, you told me. Moving on. Like, I just, here's the thing people have to realize, right? In addition to boundaries, trust is also very important. But trust is not knowing. If you knew, you wouldn't need trust. So I need people to, number one, always
say that
know
again
that.
A little bit slower.
Yes.
Go ahead and look at that camera right there, because someone's about to receive healing.
Trust is not knowing. If you knew, you wouldn't need trust. So let me tell you what that means, right?
Break it down.
Yes. Trust is nothing but consistency over time. So you've been consistent. You've done what you said. Your words, your actions match. And I've observed this, right? So that if a certain situation were to come up, I believe, based on your prior behavior, that you would act XYZ way. Gotcha. So therefore, I trust you. But do I 100% know what you're going to be? No, I don't. But I believe you're going to do or act in a certain way based on what I've seen.
Based on history, right.
Yep. Over time. And that's really all it is. I don't need to necessarily know where you're at all the time. I don't need to know who you're with all the time, like all the details. Now, mind you, give me a general idea. I'm going out, I'm going to be with here. But
do you need to have the location on?
I don't. Now, listen, that is a new thing for me that I don't understand. That is a little too Gen Z, whatever that is for me.
Do y'all do that, Micah? Location on?
No. It's called I call you when I'm there, I call you when I leave. If you text me, I call you back.
Interesting.
Like,
now, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying I don't understand it. That's too new for me. That's what these
the
younger
mechanics,
folks.
the
These
technology.
younger
Like,
folks can have that, but I'm not. I'm not finna do all that.
Google does that anyway. Once you turn your location on, they can find you at any time.
Yeah.
So don't fool yourself.
Right. That is so.
There's a GPS tracker in this ring. I'm
not the GPS tracker in the ring.
It's in here, bro.
She got a tag on it. What are those?
Geotag.
The geotags. Yeah.
That's that
things.
Wakanda
Apple
technology.
tags?
I don't know nothing about that.
You
tags
right.
in the rings and no.
Vibranium rings.
Like a dog.
Right, like at the vet. right there.
I know it.
Baby, if
If
you're
he's
watching
lost,
this right now,
return him back to me.
right? Return him back,
Right.
so I can kill him.
He was like, "Don't send me back. Don't send me."
But listen, I don't know why people's finna stress and worry themselves with all the details. Listen, trust. If you can't trust them,
it's
then
crucial.
that might not be what you need to be.
But that
That may be
involved in.
another indicator. Yeah.
That goes back
Yeah.
to what I was saying about integrity. People don't have no integrity.
That part.
So it's like, if I can't trust your character down the road,
Yes.
I mean, that's probably what I'm dating you to find out about. Like,
No,
can
that's
I?
what you should be dating to find out about, and people are not. Y'all worried about the wrong things, and you need to be. Y'all need to be evaluating character.
Yes. Can we let's throw that on the table?
Please
What
do.
is the purpose of dating? How would you what is the reason for dating? What's
Oh,
that about?
Pastor's sitting this one out. We talking to Dr. Williams.
Oh, is that what we doing?
Yeah.
Listen,
I'm
it depends
looking
on it depends on the person. Again, that is your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you better know what your purpose is and make sure you find someone that's on that same page,
Mm.
right? I'm not going to say dating has to be for marriage. I believe that. I believe that for my life, but I'm not going to impose that on someone else. But you better know what it is. Are
Mm.
you just shooting the breeze? You just need some companionship? Because oftentimes people are doing different things.
Get a dog.
Someone's in it for companionship. Someone's in it for the long run. But y'all are
Right.
wasting each other's time at the end of the day because y'all don't want the same thing.
Yeah.
Look, people let their loneliness put them in situations they should have never been in.
Hey,
Come
Okay,
on
I'm just
now.
trying.
Come on now.
told y'all.
I know that from experience. Been there, done that. Married it. Yeah.
Oh.
No, before, not now.
Last time.
Shout out to Dre.
Yeah, right.
She not lonely no more, y'all.
I know,
Okay.
but this is what you have to be aware of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a time married before I was lonelier than I was when I was single. Sometimes we put ourselves in situations we were never supposed to be in, and that's just real. And that you just learn. You had to learn from that
You had to
experience.
learn from that.
We
Wow.
got time for one more question. Well, I can see the wheels turning.
Well, I was just actually going to piggyback
Yeah, go ahead.
and say that we talked in a previous conversation about compatibility, and when what you were describing just now, you know, we say we're looking for someone who's compatible, but we have our own agency in finding that person that's compatible if we are forthright and clear
Hey,
with ourselves in terms of what we're looking for, but also with anyone we are engaging in conversation with. And so that's why I was asking, you know, like, what is the purpose of dating? And I think I totally agree. We have different intentions and desires. Everyone's not dating for marriage. Some people are dating because this other side of the bed is cold. Some people want
Right.
someone to go out with, whatever it is. But it is a challenge for some people to be honest, clear, and open and transparent about what they want and what they're looking for.
Right.
And so I do think that gets people in precarious situations. And so I mean, personally, I think dating is a great opportunity, one, to you need to get clear with yourself before you go out dating, but
Yeah, that
ask the
part.
right questions and be very strategic, intentional about gathering the information you need to determine.
No, I think a good question is, what are you doing in your singleness? So people are always focused on the dating. They're not doing what needs to be done when they're single, which is one, knowing about yourself. People run from themselves all the time. That's why they get in relationships they shouldn't be in, because you didn't take the time to figure out who you are, what you need, what you want before you start connecting with other people. You're trying to avoid that, hoping someone else is going to give you that answer to yourself. And it's like, no, you need to have that answer before you find somebody else.
That's it.
Right? So less about dating, more about what are you doing while you're single.
You need to know who you is before you asking what we is.
I wish people would spend more time doing that and stop running from themselves and running from their feelings and running from their past, because y'all are a lot of times making the same mistakes that you saw, that you were raised in, and haven't resolved them. Please do that work first before connecting with someone else, because they're going to bring their own stuff, and now y'all trying to resolve your issues, his issue, his past trauma, your past. Listen, it's messy.
Right.
It doesn't need to be as messy as people are making it if they took the time before connecting with someone else to work some of that out.
Well, I'll just say this in closing. This is not the last of Dr. Shy that y'all will be seeing on this podcast.
I hope not.
I hope not
Because
either, please.
I get
So
a,
much.
I get a lot of questions about relationships, and so I said this year let's hit it, let's get it. Like we want to add value to people's lives, so
Yeah.
let's dive into like the nitty gritty with her. So thank you so much Thank you for
Thank
joining us.
you.
Can't wait to have you
Thank
back
you.
again.
Can't
Even
wait
though
to
I'm
be
saying
back.
thank you for being here this time, like I'm already playing in my head. When's she coming back?
Whenever you want me to.
Oh man, that's the answer I like to hear.
Look, I'll always create the
That's
time for you
exciting.
guys.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna close this out real quick in a word of prayer, and
Please.
yeah, we'll break from there. But Father, we just thank you so much that we have the ability to sit around, discuss things that are very much the matter of the heart, and I pray that through this conversation, God, that people would be enlightened, that they would be encouraged, even maybe a bit challenged, God, to go against social norms and the movement of the culture that takes something that's as serious as dating or serious as relationships and turns it into a casual catastrophe. So I pray that you would just release people in their hearts and their minds, and that they would begin anew and afresh with new perspective, God, on what it means to date and how they should be going about it. We thank you for this conversation. We thank you for Shy, and we just give you all glory in Jesus' name. And let the church say,
Amen.
Amen.
All right, Ron.
Okay. I'm gonna let y'all have those voices.
That's that track star Ron right there.
See y'all next time.
Amen.
Amen.